Hi, I'm Roz, and I was Game Master yesterday for Night Witches. You are hearing the news that you will be losing the leader of your mission tonight.
Oh, shit.
Oksana is the best pilot of the 588th. And it doesn't sound like the Major has your back. And I'm here with these two amazing ladies to talk about our experiences playing this game.
Yes. I was a player. I played Valia, one of the characters. I was a pilot.
And I played a junior lieutenant navigator. Vedma was my name.
And we all have different experiences with tabletop gaming. So I'm usually a dungeon master for D&D based games, but I've also played a bunch of other systems. And you play a bit of D&D?
Yeah, I got introduced to D&D through the company. So played once or twice at one of our company just casual games nights, but really once or twice. And then I've been thrown into the ring on camera a few times on one-shots.
And this is my first time playing anything.
What a game to jump into.
I kept asking everyone repeatedly after it was over, is that what gaming's like? And they all said, no.
Well, let's talk a little bit about Night Witches, and if we can each describe a little bit about what this game is. And as a game master, for me, it was a collection of historical resources and then a system to create a game out of the actual history of these women who were fighter pilots for the Soviet Union in the Second World War.
I was so surprised because I did, IB history in school, which is supposed to, whatever. 2 years of going over the world wars, World War I and World War II, not a single time did I hear about these women in the Soviet Union. I mean, not a single time.
Honestly, I think the school system is definitely missing out. If they had more games like this that could completely immerse you utterly in history and make you feel like you were a part of it and living through it, that'd be a great way to learn.
And we play most of the games here at AFL in fantasy worlds. So I play in my homebrew world of Altero, and that's also where Ready to Roll is set. But there's dwarves and elves and magic spells. And the situations and the stakes are still similar. People are on adventures and there's danger, but what about it is different comparing a fantasy world to this actual historical fiction?
I think we absolutely have to point out that it commands a certain amount of respect. And we want to honor this because we're playing living, breathing people. And they did incredible things and trying to gain a little bit of insight into what they experienced every day. Although, we really got silly.
Got really silly.
We got very, very silly. There was one point where I was like, ooh, is this offensive? But it came back full circle, and we really did, I think, have a glimpse as to what it would have been like realistically.
Yeah,
so that was a good thing.
Interesting to make a game from something that was a terrible, amazing experience for people, but that the women who experienced it have these stories to tell, and you're right, a way to engage us in their history and keep those stories alive. It's a pretty wonderful way to experience it, but still work to honor them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you did a very good job. I felt very held by you.
I felt comforted by Roz the whole time. It's just like, what do? I just look at her.
Yeah. Even though she was like, and now I fire at you and your plane is on fire. I was like, but she loves us still.
It'll be okay.
It'll be okay until it's not.
It's not.
Oh, man.
Our plane's always on fire. That's normal, right?
Old Sparky.
Old Sparky.
We were talking a bit about how silly the game started, but then how intensely we finished. So I know I was choking up at the end and there were a few tears, and that doesn't happen every time we play tabletop games. Is there something about Night Witches that makes the experiences that much more intense, that roller coaster of emotions that we go on when we play games?
Yeah, I think definitely just thinking about it as real people who experience that. I think that's what really turns it around for sure. Because in Dungeons and Dragons or whatever, I think also partly because you're like, I'm whatever. I'm a dragon. I'm a.
Oh, that sounds fun.
I'm a something. There is a huge level of separation. You're like, well, it's a game. I've died. That's
Yeah,
fine. Whatever.
there's no personal relation to that. So
And some people do, I mean, the more that you play those characters, you can
Yes.
still, I think, develop that same compassion and emotional connection, but maybe it takes longer to build, to make that story feel true and real. But when you jump into something grounded already in these historical stories that are women who've, you know, some of them have passed not that long ago,
Yeah.
then you're kind of transported immediately into a world that feels much more connected to a real experience.
Oh
definitely.
yeah.
So what about, because the subject matter of the game was probably a little heavier and more intense than we might usually do in a tabletop game, especially here at the studio. Every game is unique out there in the world. We tend to stay pretty light. Even if we deal with life and death, it's not as much about the small interpersonal things that we were challenged with yesterday. And is it important to keep those kind of some of the ugly parts about war that the game really emphasizes? There are misogynistic assholes everywhere. The challenges of war are brutal. But to keep those elements in, is that important for this game?
Well, I think it definitely is important because it gives you a more realistic view into what it was really like. And all of the things that we were made to do, like tell me your story, tell me your background, tell me about who you're writing your letter to, it forced us to be emotionally vulnerable in a way that I think would be indicative of a person in the time. And the way they're being treated and the way they're being prejudiced against, like that was also happening. So we need to like put that in the emotional pot and stir that around to have the proper experience. So I think it's really important to represent that thing.
Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you so much for being players in Night Witches. It has been a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.